Good timing.
Outtakes.
Chopstick is so good. Burt's Bees.
Not sponsored. But willing to collaborate.
Welcome back.
Hello, everyone.
I'm Brian.
I'm Corey.
And this is Immigration for Dummies.
We're just still feeling like dummies.
Yeah. Yeah. How long have we been doing this now?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to bring you up to speed. So today is April 21st, 2024, and we submitted our application January 28th, I believe, end of January
I think it was January 27th.
of 2023.
Yeah.
So January 27th, 2023 to current day, we're still in it.
Yeah.
And we definitely have a few updates, but the quick and dirty is that I'm still living in Canada and Brian is still living in the United States, and we are still in a bit of a holding pattern. So I think the first big update was on New Year's Eve of this year.
Which was?
We got transferred from like our first initial application. So from January 27th, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, we heard nothing. We were just, the application had been submitted. We could check in, check the countdown, and the countdown just fluctuated. It was like all over the place. It really wasn't a realistic countdown. It was basically pointless because
Drove me insane.
Yeah, it was like something
I checked it all the time.
You wanted to check every day because you never knew what it was going to say. Like some days it would say 3 months, and then it would shoot up to 6 months, and then we got down to all the way to 1 day, and then it shot back up to 3 months. So it was really good news when we got the email on New Year's Eve. We were actually here in Port Townsend together, and it told us that we had been transferred to the National Visa Center, and it was the National Visa Center that is going to see us through to the end. And so as soon as we got that notice, it kind of divided the application into like 2 branches. One was the Brian branch, and one was the Corey branch. And so sponsor and applicant. And so do you remember what you had to kind of fulfill on your end?
When I had to provide my taxes.
Yeah, so it was a lot of...
My financial.
Yeah. So we both had to pay fees, and we had to wait for the fees to be processed. And that then opened up the paperwork side of things.
Yeah. And you had to provide your birth certificate.
I had to do a lot. So Brian had to do a lot in terms of like, it was just a lot more stressful, I think. Like just a lot more like...
Oh, what else did I have to pull up? I don't even remember.
It was just a really long form that we had to fill out. And then you had to, it was all like income statements for the last 3 years, all based on your tax return. So I think it wasn't a lot of work, more just like kind of emotionally stressful.
Yeah.
Just because it's like this determines his eligibility as a sponsor.
Yeah, I'm giving out information that I don't normally give out to anybody.
Yeah. And for context, like Brian is a small business owner, like there was a lot of like just layers to your financial health.
Yeah.
And then for me, it was a lot of basically like providing, what did I have to provide? I had to get a RCMP, so that's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So that's our federal police criminal record check. So that costs money. I had to get a...
She's squeaky clean.
Yeah, there was nothing... I had no worries. But But the only thing that was kind of like annoying is that I just didn't know where to get it, how to find it. Like, so it was really weird, just figuring that out. And then the other annoying thing was that I kept trying to upload my birth certificate and it kept getting sent back to me. And when I finally took the time to read through the instructions, it said that I needed to actually order an official copy. So I couldn't just like scan a copy. They needed, because what will happen is I will actually bring this official copy to my interview and they will probably keep it.
Speaking of which, I also have like official copies, I think, in the office that I should give to you because I got ADHD and it's not organized at all.
I don't know that we'll need so much about, we'll keep all the paperwork together, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
So basically you enter into this portal and you're just like uploading into the portal. And what happens is when you first upload it, it says submitted, and then you're waiting for it to be accepted. So like the birth certificate for me came back as they weren't accepting it. So that's when I had to learn, okay, I got to do this. With Brian, there was a different set of circumstances that happened.
Which was that I was not able to provide a stable income.
He didn't meet the threshold.
Yeah. So I have been working on like showing that I made less in taxes because I just I didn't do very well the previous year on taxes, and I owed more than I anticipated, and like the past year I was like working on not showing that I was making that much so I could try to catch up on my taxes.
Let's maybe bleep that part out.
No, it's fine. It's reality, being a small business owner.
Well, and your business was how many years old? 3?
Yeah, I was like just like maturing and finding out like some of the real stresses and difficulties of running your own business. I'm just learning the hard way. And so therefore we needed to actually obtain a sponsor,
a co-sponsor
for my wife.
Yeah, so basically what that means, because we're like familiar with all this language now, but basically what that means is that, so the type of application we have applied for is that Brian is sponsoring me. And with that, he needed to meet a certain income threshold.
Which was like 24,000 or something?
They do actually provide you the specific numbers. So we didn't look at that, but it wouldn't have mattered because you can't change it. It's exact. You have to submit the exact numbers that are on your tax return. So it's not like you could be like, oh yeah, I made this much. There is a place where you can put in your assets, but what we learned is that unless you can prove these assets and you have like receipts and all of those things, it's really not worth putting your assets down because it doesn't actually mean anything. If you can't be like, oh, like my car is worth this much. This is the black book.
The blue book.
Blue book. This is the blue book rating or pricing. Like,
yeah, I was like looking at my truck as being a value, my tools and trailer.
So we put all those numbers in, but we didn't back it up with the paperwork to prove their worth. So they didn't even consider that. So we got an email back saying that that I could still go through to the interview. Like they weren't saying that my interview was being taken away from me, but that with the income Brian made, it was not enough, and that to speed things up, we may want to get a co-sponsor, which means another person who will assume financial responsibility for me until I become a U.S. citizen. So that's not a small ask. Like that felt like a pretty big ask.
Yeah, for some people it might not be that big of a deal. It was a little bit of an emotional roller coaster for us. One was like feeling a bit defeated that I didn't provide that I made enough. And then, two, having to ask for help.
And for me too, like this has already been a big process of like surrendering, and like I am a very like self-sufficient, independent person. I provide more for myself. I have for many years. So like already going into this, like leaning on my husband to then like extend that to another person, and it had to be another American person. And like uh so, to think of somebody who would uh make that commitment to us. Initially we were like, who could we even ask?
Yeah, I started going down the line of like all of my
Friends.
family members that have passed away, like my dad and my uncle Bill, and like I kept thinking, man, everybody's
Gone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Well, and we thought about friends, and it's like that seemed, you know, that's a big thing to ask a friend.
Yep.
So
Got a
I've
number of friends that would have been willing to do it.
yeah.
But
But it's also
yeah, ultimately we went with my sister.
yeah. So that was as soon as we thought about Brian's sister and brother-in-law, it was just like, oh, they're the perfect people to ask. Like, not only I haven't even met them in person, but like Amy, your sister, has shown us so much support in our marriage. We also knew that like financially they were in a secure place, and it's not like they would have to like fork out any money unless something happened. Like if I couldn't support myself, then Brian couldn't support me. Then it kind of falls on their plate. And that's really just like if I rack up like medical bills, or like if collections comes after me, or like really unlikely things.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell them a little bit about us asking them, or what that was like?
No, I don't think that that's too much of I kind of feel like we should move right on into like the next scenario.
What ended up happening with asking Brian's sister and brother-in-law is that we were sort of introducing them to this whole new world, and like we felt like we kind of knew quite a bit about it, but they had a ton of questions.
Yeah.
And we started to ask them to fill out all this paperwork, and we decided that it would be really good for us to all get on the same page and actually book another consultation with our immigration attorney, who was able to kind of answer questions more specific to co-sponsorship, which I think just gave us all like a deep breath. It was kind of like, okay,
yeah,
this is actually a really good course of action.
A very common course.
Yeah,
a lot of people go through
it normalized
the same scenario.
It normalized it for us. And what I really was excited about in that conversation was that we learned that as soon as I have my interview, which is going to be in Montreal, we learned that it's just an interview of me. It has nothing to actually do with Brian. They're interviewing like my eligibility. Like, am I a decent human being? But we learned that if all goes well, I will leave Montreal with permanent residency. It's conditional permanent residency, so it'll be like in 2 years, I'll have to prove like that I'm still married to Brian. I'm still living in the United States. But like for me, that was a huge like moment, because it means that I can like basically leave that, get ready to move, and then I can work.
Yeah, legally be able to work.
Which was like,
we
thought there was
for a whole year we were planning for her to not be legally able to work here in the United States.
We thought that there was going to be some type of wait between getting my visa and then getting my permanent residency, and that amount of time was unclear.
Yeah, somehow we came under the impression that it was going to be at least 3 months or something.
6 months. We didn't know. We didn't know. So she really dispelled a lot of those thinking that we had. So then after that, our co-sponsors felt comfortable like submitting all the paperwork. We felt like we knew what we were doing. And so now we've submitted all the paperwork, and we got a notice saying the next communication we will get is my interview date. So that's what we're waiting for right now, is my interview date. And I've been looking up online a little bit, and it sounds like it's about a 3-month wait to kind of find out. So we're at, we submitted everything at the end of February. It's now mid-April. So we're about halfway through that 3 months.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. But it's not without some struggles. So we're still very much in it. And Brian, I don't know, you want to share a little bit about?
Maybe my last time
Coming to Canada.
Coming to Canada. Oh, man. So, we go back and forth on the Blackball Coho ferry, from Port Angeles, Washington, over to Victoria, BC. And what an amazing, way to be able to travel to go see your partner.
Yeah. We love the Blackball.
Love it.
Yeah.
Hell, I thought about asking her to marry me on the boat. I couldn't quite figure that one out.
Look at this.
And anyways, she recently made a move from her beautiful apartment to a smaller, more affordable apartment, all financial aspects of trying to prepare ourselves for a bigger move. And so
this was April 1st.
April 1st, yeah. So this wasn't that long ago. This is very recent. We rented a U-Haul because, the idea was I'm going to drive this U-Haul across on the Blackball ferry. And because every time I ever take the Blackball ferry, I have to either park my car and walk on, or I have to bring my car. And I usually just walk on, so I'll have to pay for parking. It's always a bit of a task trying to, commute. So this time I bring a U-Haul.
The idea of him bringing the U-Haul was because this was also me downsizing and an opportunity for Brian to bring some of my things back with him. So that's why
I'm bringing it all the way from the U.S. to Canada.
Yeah, to then drive it back to.
So I drive this U-Haul across. I get to the crossing there with the
Canadian Customs.
The Canadian Customs, thank you. And they...
and this is in Victoria. So he's
Victoria.
Already crossed. He's now getting off the boat. And when you get off the boat, you're driving through customs.
Yep. And when I've done it before, they just ask me, who are you? What are you doing? What are you doing here? And how long do you plan to stay? And they basically usually just send you on your way. But this time I'm driving a U-Haul, and they tell me to pull off to the side. They had me open the thing up. I hadn't even looked in the back of this thing because I was in a rush. U-Haul didn't actually have the right size vehicle that we wanted to rent.
It was a whole debacle.
And we also weren't able to get a reservation for the Blackball ferry that weekend because it was Easter weekend.
Yeah, there was a lot of
things that were adding up.
Yeah.
And then I opened the back of this thing, and it reeks of marijuana. It's oh God.
Not where you want to be.
Yeah. And
with Canadian Customs, you don't. Yeah. I mean, it's legal.
They're just asking me all kinds of questions. And I guess that was the point maybe when they decided to pull up my criminal record. And over 12 years ago, I had collected a number of DUIs. I was pretty into drinking and driving at the time. One was a probation before judgment, but then the other two, I think I may have pleaded guilty, and it's been so long that I can't even quite remember exact details.
Definitely not something he ever thinks about when he's coming to Canada.
Yep, don't ever even.
They never
maybe
asked.
The first couple of times I thought about it, but after a few times they never asked me, and I thought maybe it'd been so long that it just didn't matter anymore.
And he's been coming over for almost 3 years.
3 years.
Consistently.
And I had even came over once before, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
it's just been a long time.
So yeah, we think that the U-Haul kind of triggered a bit of a red flag, and we have no idea what they're looking at on their little screens, but this kind of gave us the impression that there are different levels that they can kind of access, and usually they're not digging too deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this time they dug deeper, and what they ended up doing.
We don't need to show it. It's an official document.
They gave me an official document, and then they also made me. They believed everything that I was saying because I was forthright and just telling them the God's honest truth. And then they made me pay a $200 fee to stay. Otherwise, they would have made
It was a
me
fine.
fine.
You paid a fine.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
An actual fine?
I think so.
Fine. Whatever. I paid that. I was able to stay. Helped my wife move.
So Brian had to explain like the whole situation, and they kind of made it sound like they were doing him a big favor by like issuing him a 2-day visa.
I felt like a criminal.
Yeah.
Was what
they held him there for like
maybe an hour or something.
Yeah, you were late. You were like, I finally called because I'm like, where are you? Like, what's going on? I had already had a ton of anxiety around the move because talking to my brother and his partner, and they're doing the same thing,
but in the opposite direction.
Yeah, but they're always bringing her stuff back and forth, and so I already had some nerves about like the U-Haul truck, but I had no idea
that
that's what was going on. I had not even a million years did that cross my mind that would ever be something that would be a problem.
Yeah,
because like Brian has been clean and sober. He just celebrated 12 years.
Yep.
And all these things are like from a version of him that I don't even know. I don't even know that Brian. I'm so disconnected from like that even being a part of our reality, like for something that far in the past to be affecting my ability to see my husband is like, you can actually drive yourself crazy thinking about it.
Yep. So we did the move. And we kind of just like enjoyed the rest of our weekend.
Tried to just put that aside.
Yep. And then on my way back to the United States,
with all my stuff,
with her stuff in the U-Haul this time, I got to the U.S. Customs back in Port Angeles, and they gave me a hard time there because I'm not supposed to be bringing Canadians' belongings to the U.S.
Even though you, again, were very honest.
Yep.
They didn't even look in the back of the truck.
No, he just gave me a really hard time.
It's like you could have shown them that A, it wasn't even that much stuff, and B, it was like
he was a real jerk.
I wasn't like hiding in the back. I wasn't a stowaway.
I was also feeling at the time of like, I just went through this deal on my way to Canada, and that was really frustrating and alarming. And now it's happening again, going through, an authoritarian type of scenario. And anyways.
And just treating you like you're guilty of something. And
and I'm like, I kind of fought back with him. Like, look, I'm a U.S. citizen. Legally, like I am legally allowed to marry anybody that I want to and work on bringing them into this country. So whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I mean, unfortunately, like they treat everyone as if like it's like kind of the worst case scenario, like that we're and whatever. Like we don't need to get into all that, but it doesn't actually matter how honest you are. It doesn't matter what your story is. Like they're gonna just give you.
It depends on how that person's feeling at the time.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they so choose.
Yeah. So they let him through.
Yeah, they let me through.
So my things are here.
And I'm working on, addressing what I can. I don't know that I'll be able to expunge my record, but that's what I'm working towards doing at this point in time.
Yeah, so we are still trying to figure out what this means for Brian to come into Canada because, we've been given different advice. We've heard different information. Like some are of the mindset that Brian should just be forthright and just come right out with it and not like hide things. And you know, there's also the opinion of like, unless they're asking, like, you could still try.
Yeah.
We don't know if there's any type of like red flag on his file now. Like, yeah.
Yep, we don't know. To be continued on what happens the next time I do try to go to Canada.
Yeah, and it's a real letdown. Like
we got a couple of family events coming up that it's
well,
like
and
definitely want to be able to go and participate.
our life is in between two countries. So like Brian is a part of my life in Canada. Like my family is his family. Like it's the closest family you have.
Yeah, because
geographically.
All my family's on the East Coast.
Yeah, and so it's just like, and you know, to think about our future as like, you know, we've floated the idea of maybe one day living in Canada, and to just feel like those types of things are being, you know, challenged, and
sure,
we don't know what that looks like. So we're trying not to lean too much into the fear, and just trying to like be proactive and see, you know, what are the options available. But it's, yeah, you can kind of start to feel a little bit sorry for yourself, or a little bit frustrated with the system. Yeah. But yeah, so that's sort of
that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. So I mean, like for now, like I will be trying to come here more. We're really hoping that, you know, my interview isn't too far off. One other thing is that I told my employer finally. That kind of came up. I didn't mean for it to come up, but I hadn't told my boss about even being married, and I certainly hadn't shared any information about applying for a visa, because this has now been over a year-long process, and I just felt like I didn't need to disclose any of that information yet. I didn't want to worry about my job security or anything like that, but that conversation actually went really well, and it's been nice to just like lean more into just like, this is a part of who I am. This is what I'm going through. And I mean, yeah, I don't feel any worry about my job security or anything like that. And yeah.
That was a big debate starting out.
Huge. Yeah, there was a lot of fear around that, because it was also like excitement, like also wanting to be like, my husband, you know, like
she's got this big thing that's happening in her life, and then she can't talk about it.
Yeah. And so it was actually my boss who was like, so what's your guys' plan? Like, she was like, when are you gonna marry this guy? You know, like, or it was just sort of like, she understood. And she did the same thing. She moved from another country to be with with a Canadian husband. So she's like, I get it. So, anything else?
No, I think that, or not on my end.
Yeah, I think we're just trucking along.
Yeah. I know that if you are watching these videos, obviously you're going through the immigration process, or you're thinking about going through this immigration process, and you know, obviously there's other ways, and not every application is the same, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the way we are doing it is
suitable for us.
Yeah, but I don't think it's like the most popular way. Like it's there's challenges no matter which way you do it, but like the two main ways that I understand is like so I could have moved to the United States right away and then started this application, but I wouldn't have been able to work, and my ability to go back to Canada would have been compromised. So the way we're doing it is we're continuing to live in separate countries, but as you've heard, like it's not without its own host of challenges. So, I mean, for us, financial security did rank really high, just around me being able to continue to work. and just continue to kind of live life.
Your father.
Yeah, my dad was a big consideration.
Yep.
And, you know, all of this has been...
That was like our primary reason for doing this application, was so you could
Yeah.
be able to go back and
Yeah.
yeah.
See my dad.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, it works. It's working for us, even though it's hard. But I think I don't think we would have done it any other way. Yeah.
Got her.
So that's it. I think we will try to do a shorter form video of just more of the timeline of things, to give people kind of a very accurate depiction of time, but it may be worth waiting until we get an interview date to kind of put that together, to kind of allow people to see the full picture.
Sure.
But that's it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.